when they break up, all right, and who knows who broke, everyone has a theory.
I know.
Who broke it up?
John.
John did.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney teamed up with John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr to reshape popular music and culture in a way that still echoes around the world today. Though the Beatles parted ways in 1970, their impact remains unmatched. McCartney didn't just fade into the background, he built an incredible solo career that solidified his status as a music legend. But after all these years, fans have been dying to know what really caused the band to break up. Now, Paul McCartney has finally opened up and revealed the truth behind the Beatles' split. But before we dive into that story, let's take a closer look at the life of this icon and his journey with the band that changed everything. Early life and musical career of McCartney. Born on June 18, 1942, in Liverpool's Walton district, Sir James Paul McCartney rose to become one of the most influential figures in music history as a key member of the Beatles. Celebrated as a gifted singer, songwriter, and musician, McCartney's talents were essential to the band's groundbreaking success. Alongside John Lennon, he shared lead vocals and co-wrote many of the most memorable songs that defined a generation and continue to resonate today. McCartney's early life was rooted in modest beginnings, shaped by the strength and dedication of his parents, Jim and Mary McCartney. His father, originally a salesman, shifted to vital wartime work as a lathe turner during World War II, while his mother pursued a career in nursing and midwifery. This hard-working environment laid the foundation for Paul's perseverance and creativity. His education began at Stockton Wood Road Primary School and later progressed to the Liverpool Institute after passing the competitive 11+ exam. It was here that he formed a lifelong friendship with George Harrison, bonding over shared bus rides to school and a mutual passion for music. Paul's unique melodic bass-playing style and wide vocal range became hallmarks of his musical identity, contributing significantly to the Beatles' distinctive sound and setting a new standard in songwriting alongside Lennon. A deeply personal tragedy struck when McCartney's mother, Mary, died on October 31, 1956, from complications following breast cancer surgery. This loss profoundly impacted Paul and forged a connection with John Lennon, whose own mother had passed away 2 years earlier. Music was a constant thread in McCartney's family life. His father, Jim, a musician and former leader of Jim Mack's jazz band in the 1920s, nurtured his son's love for music from an early age. Their home featured an upright piano, and Jim encouraged both Paul and his younger brother to explore their musical talents. Though Jim suggested formal piano lessons for Paul, the young musician preferred to learn by ear, a testament to his natural gift and instinctive approach to music. But how did McCartney end up with the Beatles? Well, that part is coming shortly. At the age of 14, Paul received a nickel-plated trumpet from his father as a birthday gift, but his musical interests soon shifted towards the burgeoning rock and roll scene. Inspired by artists like Little Richard and influenced by American rhythm and blues, McCartney traded his trumpet for a famous Zenith acoustic guitar. Initially struggling with a right-handed guitar, he got inspired by a poster of left-handed guitarist Slim Whitman, prompting him to restring his guitar to suit his left-handed style. This marked the beginning of McCartney's journey as a guitarist and songwriter, eventually leading him to compose his earliest songs on the Zenith. Following this, McCartney performed Little Richard's Long Tall Sally at a talent competition, setting the stage for his future as a musical icon. At the tender age of 15, on July 6, 1957, Paul McCartney crossed paths with John Lennon and his band, the Quarrymen, at the St. Peter's Church Hall Fete in Woolton. The Quarrymen's repertoire blended rock and roll with skiffle, a popular music style infused with jazz, blues, and folk elements. Impressed by McCartney's musical prowess, the band swiftly invited him to join as a rhythm guitarist, marking the beginning of a dynamic partnership with Lennon. When George Harrison joined in 1958 as lead guitarist, and Stuart Sutcliffe, Lennon's art school friend, brought in his bass skills in 1960, the core lineup was complete. Throughout their early years, the band underwent several name changes before settling on the name that would resonate throughout music history: the Beatles. This was in August 1960. Shortly thereafter, they recruited drummer Pete Best just before embarking on a pivotal residency in Hamburg, Germany, which would profoundly shape their sound and camaraderie. Rise to fame with the Beatles. Just a year after the band decided on their name in 1961, Stuart Sutcliffe left. McCartney then took on the role of bass player. His commitment to this new role soon became evident as the band ventured into new musical territories. During their formative years in Hamburg, the Beatles recorded professionally for the first time, backing English singer Tony Sheridan under the moniker The Beat Brothers on the single My Bonnie. This recording caught the attention of Brian Epstein, who would become instrumental in shaping the band's trajectory as their manager from January 1962 onward. Later that year, Ringo Starr replaced Pete Best as the Beatles' drummer, just before they achieved their breakthrough with the hit single Love Me Do in October 1962, marking the onset of Beatlemania in the UK, and a year later in the US. Amidst this frenzy, McCartney's charm and musical prowess earned him the endearing nickname Cute Beatle. McCartney's songwriting partnership with Lennon blossomed during this period, yielding a string of hits that defined the Beatles' early success, including I Saw Her Standing There, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and Can't Buy Me Love. By August 1965, McCartney showcased his versatility with the poignant ballad Yesterday, featuring a string quartet. This marked the Beatles' foray into incorporating classical music elements and solidified Yesterday as one of the most covered songs in music history. McCartney's growing influence within the band became perfectly evident with the album Rubber Soul. His role expanded beyond songwriting to include instrumentalist, arranger, producer, and de facto musical director. Tracks like In My Life highlighted McCartney and Lennon's evolving songwriting maturity, while the album as a whole marked a departure from the Beatles' earlier pop sound towards more sophisticated and introspective themes. Released in 1966, Revolver further cemented McCartney's creative prowess with songs like Eleanor Rigby. The album's experimental approach and complex lyrics marked a significant evolution in the Beatles' artistic journey, foreshadowing the groundbreaking innovations yet to come. Following the Beatles' final commercial concert after their 1966 U.S. tour, McCartney embarked on his first independent musical venture outside of the band. He worked on a film score for the UK production The Family Way. Collaborating with George Martin, McCartney composed themes that Martin transformed into 13 variations. While the soundtrack didn't achieve commercial success, it did earn McCartney acclaim and an Ivor Novello Award for Best Instrumental Theme. Sensing a need for creative renewal within the Beatles after their touring days ended, McCartney pushed the band to embark on a bold new project that would redefine their musical legacy. This vision materialized into Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, a landmark in rock history often hailed as the first concept album. The band embarked on an experimental journey during the recording sessions for Sgt. Pepper's. The album's ambitious scope was exemplified by tracks like A Day in the Life, which required a 40-piece orchestra with McCartney and Martin sharing conducting duties. This period of creativity also produced the iconic double A-side single Strawberry Fields Forever in February 1967, followed by the album's release in June. Following Brian Epstein's untimely death in August 1967, Paul McCartney assumed an increasingly prominent role within the Beatles, stepping into the void left by Epstein's absence. Gradually, McCartney emerged as the de facto leader and business manager of the group, a role previously held by John Lennon. McCartney spearheaded the production of a television film, which evolved into the ambitious, magical mystery tour. Despite facing logistical challenges, the film, largely directed by McCartney, received mixed critical reviews. However, its accompanying soundtrack proved more successful, released in various formats and quickly becoming a commercial hit. The Beatles' creative ventures continued with the animated film Yellow Submarine, inspired by McCartney's earlier composition. Premiering in July 1968, the film garnered praise for its innovative visuals and musical contributions. By late 1968, tensions within the band were palpable, exacerbated during the recording of the White Album. The discord persisted into the Let It Be sessions in 1969, documented on film, where McCartney voiced concerns about the group's direction and dynamics, lamenting the loss of Epstein's guiding influence. The band's final recorded album, Abbey Road, marked a poignant collaboration where McCartney and George Martin advocated for a cohesive symphonic approach despite differing opinions within the group. Moreover, during this period, a bizarre rumor surfaced in October 1969 alleging McCartney's death in a car accident years earlier. The rumor was swiftly debunked when McCartney and his family appeared on the cover of Life magazine in November 1969, reassuring fans that Paul is still with us. But all was not good for the band, and just a year later, the Beatles were no more. So, who was it that broke the band? Years later, McCartney revealed the truth. For now, let's take a look at what happened immediately afterward. Paul McCartney and the Wings. Amidst the dissolution of the Beatles, McCartney struggled with a profound sense of depression. It was during this challenging period that his wife, Linda, lifted his spirits and encouraged him by praising his songwriting abilities. In tribute to her profound impact on his life, McCartney penned the heartfelt ballad, Maybe I'm Amazed. The song expressed McCartney's awe at Linda's ability to anchor him emotionally. In 1970, McCartney embarked on his solo career with the release of McCartney. The album topped the charts in the US, setting the stage for McCartney's solo journey. The following year, McCartney collaborated with Linda and drummer Denny Seiwell on Ram, another critically acclaimed album that reached #1 in the UK and the top 5 in the US. In September 1971, McCartney, Linda, and Seiwell formed Wings. Following the addition of guitarist Henry McCullough, Wings embarked on their inaugural concert tour in 1972, gaining confidence and readiness for their subsequent European tour. The Wings Over Europe tour in 1972 spanned 7 weeks and 25 shows, showcasing predominantly Wings and McCartney solo material. McCartney intentionally chose smaller venues with capacities under 3,000, maintaining an intimate atmosphere conducive to the band's evolving sound and style. In March 1973, Wings achieved their first US #1 single with My Love from the album Red Rose Speedway. The same year, the band also introduced the iconic track Live and Let Die, the theme song for the James Bond film of the same name. Produced in collaboration with former Beatles producer George Martin, the song earned Martin a Grammy for its orchestral arrangement and became a chart-topping hit in the US. After the departure of Henry McCullough and Denny Seiwell in 1973, McCartney, alongside Linda and Denny Laine, recorded Band on the Run. This album became the band's first to top charts in both the USA and the UK. It also earned McCartney and Wings a Grammy Award for Best Pop Vocal Performance for the titular track. Despite lineup changes, Wings' momentum continued to soar, cementing their place in rock history with their dynamic sound and chart-topping achievements. Following the monumental success of Band on the Run, Wings continued their musical journey with back-to-back chart-topping albums. Venus and Mars in 1975 and Wings at the Speed of Sound in 1976 solidified their place in rock history. In 1975, Wings embarked on the ambitious Wings Over the World Tour, spanning 14 months and covering the UK, Australia, Europe, and the US. The tour culminated in the release of the acclaimed live triple LP, Wings Over America, capturing the energy and spirit of their performances across the globe. In 1977, their single Mull of Kintyre, co-written with Denny Laine, became a phenomenon in the UK, setting records with its unprecedented sales. It held the UK sales record until 1984. London Town in 1978 and Back to the Egg in 1979 continued Wings' commercial streak, each spawning chart-topping singles. By 1980, McCartney's creative journey led him to release McCartney 2, a solo album that topped the charts in the UK and marked a shift in his musical direction. The album included the hit single Coming Up, performed live by Wings and becoming their final #1 hit. However, just a year later, in 1981, McCartney decided to discontinue Wings due to internal disagreements. With Denny Laine's departure, the Wings came were no more, marking the end of an era. Following the end of Wings, Paul McCartney faced a new chapter both personally and professionally. Freed from band commitments, he explored fresh musical directions, experimenting with various styles and collaborations. Throughout the 1980s, McCartney released a series of solo albums, including Tug of War, 1982, and Pipes of Peace, 1983, which showcased his evolving sound and lyrical maturity. He also collaborated with other legendary artists such as Michael Jackson, co-writing hits like Say, Say, Say and The Girl Is Mine, further cementing his relevance in the pop world. Despite his ongoing success, McCartney remained deeply connected to his Beatles legacy, often reflecting on the band's influence while pushing forward creatively. He also expanded into other ventures, including classical music compositions and occasional film scoring. Throughout all these endeavors, McCartney's resilience and passion for music endured, inspiring generations of artists and fans alike. His journey from Beatles bassist to solo superstar exemplifies his remarkable ability to reinvent himself while honoring his past. Moving on after the Wings. In 1982, McCartney collaborated with Stevie Wonder on the hit single Ebony and Ivory, produced by George Martin, which topped the charts as McCartney's record-setting 28th #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100. The same year, he also worked with Michael Jackson on The Girl Is Mine from Jackson's Thriller album. Their collaboration continued with Say, Say, Say in 1983. The next year, McCartney ventured into filmmaking with Give My Regards to Broad Street, a musical in which he starred, wrote, and produced. Despite critical disapproval of the film, the soundtrack performed well, reaching #1 in the UK and featuring the US top 10 hit No More Lonely Nights. McCartney also composed Spies Like Us for the 1985 film of the same name. He participated in Live Aid in 1985, delivering a memorable performance. In 1986, McCartney collaborated with Eric Stewart on Press to Play. His creative output continued with Back in the USSR in 1988, initially released exclusively in the Soviet Union. In 1989, McCartney joined Jerry Marsden and Holly Johnson for a rendition of Ferry Cross the Mersey to support the Hillsborough Disaster Appeal Fund. He also released Flowers in the Dirt, a collaborative effort with Elvis Costello that included contributions from Gilmore and Nicky Hopkins. McCartney then embarked on the Paul McCartney World Tour, his first in over a decade, culminating in a historic concert at Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where he performed for a record-breaking paying audience of 184,000 people. That year also saw the release of Tripping the Live Fantastic, a triple album featuring highlights from the tour. In 1991, McCartney delved into orchestral music with a commission from the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Society, resulting in the Liverpool Oratorio co-composed with Carl Davis. Despite mixed reviews, it reached #1 on the UK classical chart. That same year, he performed an acoustic set for MTV Unplugged, releasing a live album titled Unplugged. In the 1990s, he collaborated with youth from Killing Joke on 2 electronica albums under the pseudonym The Fireman. Their first album, Strawberries, Oceans, Ships, Forest, was released in 1993. In 1993, McCartney returned to rock with the album Off the Ground and embarked on the New World Tour, which produced the live album Paul is Live. McCartney then shifted focus to the Beatles anthology project from 1994 to 1998. In 1997, he released the critically acclaimed rock album Flaming Pie, featuring Starr on drums in Beautiful Night. The same year, he ventured into classical music again with Standing Stone, topping both UK and US classical charts. Continuing his eclectic output, McCartney released the second Fireman album, Rushes, in 1998, followed by Run, Devil, Run in 1999. He also performed at the Concert for Linda tribute in 1999 at the Royal Albert Hall. In the year 2000, McCartney continued his musical explorations with the electronica album Liverpool Sound Collage, a collaboration with Super Furry Animals and Youth. That same year, he contributed the song Nova to the tribute album A Garland for Linda, dedicated to his late wife. Following the September 11th attacks, McCartney took a leading role in organizing the concert for New York City and released the studio album Driving Rain in November 2001. The album included the song Freedom, a direct response to the tragic events. In 2002, he embarked on the Driving World Tour with a new band featuring Rusty Anderson and Brian Ray on guitars, Paul Wickens on keyboards, and Abe Laboriel Jr. on drums. The tour was a massive success, earning $126.2 million. In 2002, McCartney performed at the Concert for George on the first anniversary of George Harrison's death. He also made notable appearances at the Super Bowl XXXVI pregame show in 2002 and headlined the halftime show at Super Bowl XXXIX in 2005. The same year, McCartney also performed at the Live 8 event in London's Hyde Park and released the rock album Chaos and Creation in the Backyard in September. This album was followed by the classical work Ecce Cor Meum in 2006 and the rock album Memory Almost Full in 2007. McCartney also released his third Fireman album, Electric Arguments, in 2008. The following year, McCartney resumed touring after a hiatus, performing over 80 shows and celebrating the reissue of the Beatles catalog by EMI with digital remastering and the release of the Beatles Rock Band video game. He played 3 sold-out concerts at Citi Field in New York, leading to the double live album Good Evening, New York City. In 2010, he inaugurated the Consol Energy Center in Pittsburgh and the following year performed 2 sold-out shows at the new Yankee Stadium. In 2011, he signed with Decca Records, composed his first dance score, Ocean's Kingdom, and released Kisses on the Bottom. He was also honored as the Musicares Person of the Year and performed at the 54th Annual Grammy Awards. In 2012, McCartney played to over 100,000 fans in Mexico City, closed Queen Elizabeth's Diamond Jubilee concert, and headlined the 2012 Summer Olympics opening ceremony in London. McCartney continued his philanthropy, performing at the Concert for Sandy Relief and releasing New in 2013. In early 2014, he participated in The Night That Changed America, a Grammy salute to the Beatles, and later performed at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. He collaborated with Kanye West on Only One and with West and Rihanna on 4-5 Seconds, performing at the Grammy Awards. In 2015, he performed with Paul Simon on Saturday Night Live's 40th anniversary special and with the Hollywood Vampires on a cover of his song Come and Get It. He released the collection Pure McCartney in 2016 and continued to impact music and culture with his 2018 album Egypt Station, which topped the Billboard 200. In December 2020, McCartney released McCartney 3, his first #1 solo album in the UK since 1989, recorded during COVID-19 lockdowns. He followed this with McCartney 3 Imagined in 2021. He published the lyrics 1956 to the present in November 2021, which was highly acclaimed. In 2022, McCartney embarked on the Got Back tour in the US, culminating in a historic Glastonbury Festival performance, becoming the oldest solo headliner. He won a Primetime Emmy Award for The Beatles' Get Back, and published 1964 Eyes of the Storm in 2023, a collection of his photographs from the Beatlemania era. However, the story of McCartney is not over yet. Behind the Beatlemania, there was a man, a mortal, a friend, a lover, a husband, and a father. Before we delve into his revelations about the Beatles' breakup, let's look at the man himself. Life behind the Beatlemania. In addition to his artistic pursuits, McCartney produced and hosted The Real Buddy Holly Story in 1985 and made a notable guest appearance on The Simpsons in 1995. He directed a short documentary about the Grateful Dead and consistently ranked as the UK's wealthiest musician, with a fortune estimated at £730 million in 2015. On a more personal level, McCartney's streak of romantic relationships started with Dorothy Roan, whom he met in Liverpool's Casbah Club in 1959. McCartney exerted a controlling influence over Roan, choosing her clothes and makeup, even suggesting hairstyle changes to resemble Brigitte Bardot. Despite McCartney's frequent letters while in Hamburg with the Beatles, their relationship ended abruptly after Roan's miscarriage, leading McCartney to break off their engagement, feeling that he was free of obligation. Following Roan, McCartney met British actress Jane Asher in April 1963 at a Beatles performance in London. Their relationship quickly developed, and McCartney moved into Asher's parents' home on Wimpole Street in Marylebone. They lived together for over 2 years before relocating to McCartney's residence in St. John's Wood in 1966. McCartney's time with Asher inspired several songs, including Yesterday and I Love Her, You Won't See Me, and I'm Looking Through You. Despite plans to marry, their relationship ended when Asher discovered McCartney's involvement with Francie Schwartz, an American screenwriter who moved to London hoping to sell a script to the Beatles. After Jane Asher ended her engagement with Paul McCartney in 1968, Francie Schwartz moved into McCartney's London home. Their relationship, however, was short-lived. The Beatles were in the midst of significant changes, both personally and professionally. McCartney was deeply involved in the production of the White Album, and the tensions within the band were escalating. By late 1968, McCartney's relationship with Schwartz had ended, and he soon began dating Linda Eastman, an American photographer whom he met in 1967 at a Georgie Fame concert in London. Initially attracted to John Lennon, Linda quickly shifted her interest to Paul upon meeting him. They married in March 1969, despite nearly calling off the wedding due to a heated argument the night before. Together, they formed Wings after the Beatles' breakup in 1970, facing criticism but collaborating musically until Linda's death from breast cancer in 1998. Paul described their marriage as fun-loving and acknowledged seeking counseling after her death to manage feelings of guilt and imperfection. Following Linda's passing, McCartney married Heather Mills, a former model and activist against landmines, in 2002. They had a daughter, Beatrice Millie, in 2003, but their relationship faced intense media scrutiny from the beginning, with Mills often being portrayed negatively by the press. Reports suggested that differences in lifestyle, values, and personal conflicts contributed to the strain on their marriage. Mills' outspoken nature and her contentious relationship with the media contrasted sharply with McCartney's more reserved public persona. Ultimately, their marriage ended in an acrimonious divorce in 2008. 3 years later, McCartney married Nancy Shevell in a small civil ceremony in London. They had been together since 2007, while McCartney was still married to Mills. Shevell is the vice president of a transportation conglomerate and is notably younger than McCartney. They had known each other for about 2 decades before their marriage, having first met due to their shared homes in the Hamptons. They celebrated their 12th wedding anniversary in October 2023. The couple enjoys vacations together, including a recent trip to St. Bart's in March 2024. They often spend quality time together and indulge in their favorite activities, such as relaxing on the beach and enjoying wellness routines. Beyond his marital and love life, McCartney has also had a relationship with harmful substances. This started back in the 1960s with Preludin in Hamburg to maintain energy during performances, and later cannabis, introduced by Bob Dylan in 1964. McCartney's cannabis use became a theme in his music, such as in the song "Got to Get You Into My Life." Despite experimenting with LSD, cocaine, and other substances, he eventually quit cannabis in 2015 to set a positive example for his grandchildren. Not all aspects of the music icon's life are as controversial, though. In 1975, McCartney and his wife Linda visited a farm where they witnessed lambs grazing alongside their mothers. This experience deeply moved them, prompting them to realize the ethical implications of eating meat. This led them to advocate for animal rights and ethical treatment. They promoted vegetarianism and ensured their food company, Linda McCartney Foods, was free of genetically modified ingredients. McCartney also supported organizations like PETA and the Humane Society, participating in campaigns against seal hunting, landmines, and more. His activism extended to humanitarian causes, environmental protection, and social issues, including Make Poverty History and opposing fracking. Beyond this, McCartney has also contributed to numerous charitable causes through benefit concerts, charity recordings, and personal donations. His advocacy spans global issues, from supporting Aung San Suu Kyi to campaigning for ecological responsibility and NHS charities. In 2024, McCartney continued his activism by sponsoring the Tree Register yearbook. Now, on to the main question. Who was it that broke the iconic band? Who really broke up the Beatles? When the Beatles split in 1970, the spotlight of blame, naturally, fell on McCartney. However, in a recent revelation, McCartney clarified that it was actually John Lennon who initiated the breakup. In an interview with BBC Radio 4's John Wilson, McCartney recounted the pivotal moment when Lennon declared his intention to leave the band. He likened it to a divorce and left McCartney and the remaining members to navigate the aftermath. McCartney acknowledged that while he was the one who legally ended the Beatles' business partnership by suing his bandmates, he was not the one to actually start the breakup. McCartney claims that Lennon was motivated by his evolving social and political activism alongside Yoko Ono. The couple advocated for bagism, a movement urging people to see beyond appearances. They also engaged in their famous bed-ins for peace, where they protested against the Vietnam War from Amsterdam and Montreal. McCartney described the breakup as the most challenging period of his life, lamenting that the Beatles could have continued longer if not for Lennon's departure. Despite the tumultuous breakup, the Beatles remain an indelible part of music history, their impact transcending generations and genres. Their innovative approach to songwriting, studio production, and cultural influence reshaped the landscape of popular music forever. From their early days in Liverpool's underground clubs to their global phenomenon status, the Beatles not only set records, but also broke barriers, blending diverse musical styles and pushing artistic boundaries. Their legacy extends beyond chart-topping hits. The Beatles pioneered the concept album with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, explored new sounds and technologies, and used their platform to advocate for social change. Each member of the band contributed a distinct voice and vision, creating a synergy that captured the zeitgeist of the 1960s and continues to resonate today. Despite their individual pursuits after the breakup, the Beatles' collective body of work remains unparalleled, inspiring countless musicians and artists worldwide. Their influence can be felt in every corner of the music industry, from pop to rock to experimental genres. As Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr continue to perform and preserve their legacy, and the world celebrates their timeless melodies and innovative spirit, the Beatles stand as not just a band, but as pioneers who shaped the very fabric of modern music and culture. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.